Alright, so I'm going to show how to open up and disassemble this MacBook Air model A1466. So this model is the same with the 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2017 models. But anyways, first you'll need a Pentalobe 0.8 and then a T5 screwdriver. If you want to take out the screen, you also need a T8, but I'm not going to be taking out the screen in this video because I have several videos where I already took out the screen. So if you want to know how to remove the screen, just watch those videos. Alright, so first what you want to do is remove the screws from the bottom. So this is using the Pentalobe screwdriver. So there's 4 here, 2 more here, and then 4 more at the bottom. And the 2 back here are longer screws, so keep them in order. You don't want to get them all mixed up. Hold on, someone's calling. Okay. Alright, so once you remove all those screws, you want to go from the back here, and then you just pull up the cover, just like that. There's a little clip that connects into the battery, but you just want to pull it straight up. Okay, so that's what the inside of the cover looks like. Alright, after that you want to remove the battery. So there's 5 T5 screws, so remove those. Again, you want to keep them in order because they are different sizes. So these 2 towards the back are longer, and then the one in the middle is about the same length, but they use a different kind of Loctite or thread locker. So you don't want to get them all mixed up, okay? Alright, and then the ones at the bottom are the shortest. Okay. Just like that, remove all the screws. Okay, once you got all 5 screws, what you want to do to remove the battery is you just get underneath the battery, lift it up, and when you take the battery out, you want to lift straight up, but there's the connector here. So to remove that connector, let me see if I can zoom in so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so again, you want to hold the battery up, and then with the connector, you want to just wiggle this little tab. Just wiggle it as you pull back, okay? And you want to pull the battery straight up. You don't want to slide it backwards and then just lift it out. Because if you slide it backwards, sometimes it can get caught on here and you can damage this cable, okay? So there's the battery. This laptop MacBook had some liquid damage, so this got some red. The little liquid detectors turn red, but this battery seems to be working okay. And the battery, if you need to know, is A1466. Okay, so if you need to replace the battery, the model number is A1496. All right, so now that we got that out, what we're going to do is open up the computer and press and hold the power button. Okay, so you want to press and hold the power button for about 15 seconds or so. This will drain any additional power that's in the Logicboard. Okay, so just do that. Alright, once you've done that, you can start disconnecting cables. So you got the keyboard / trackpad connector here. So you just flip up this latch. Let me zoom in. Okay, so you just flip this piece up like that. And then you can pull this connector back. You might have to wiggle it slightly, but just pull it back. Okay, then you got the keyboard backlight connector. Same thing, flip up the little latch here. Alright, to remove this, you might need to use some tools because there's not much slack. So what I do is I get my screwdrivers, or you can use a needle, and then just wedge it between and then pull it back. Okay, so just like that. You have to kind of move it up and down as well because it gets caught on the plastic tabs inside. Okay, so this one, I don't know why, but these cables tend to always be a little bit difficult. But let's see here. So get the tool behind it, and there we go. Okay, so just work with it. Don't yank too hard because you can damage the connector if you try and force it out. Okay, anyways, let me zoom back out. All right, so there's the LCD connector here. To remove this, I just flip up this metal latch here. I use my fingernail to do it. You can use a plastic tool, or you can just try and lift up this black plastic tab and then pull on it. Alright, so once you get it vertical like this, you kind of get your fingers as close to the bottom of it as possible, and then you kind of just pull it back. Alright, just like that. So that's how you disconnect the screen, the LCD LVDS connector. All right, so we got all of these. Then you want to remove the wireless card. Okay, so let me zoom in again. All right, so for the wireless antennas, just like every other model, you go at the tail and then you pull the connector up. Okay, just like this. All right, same thing with the other one. Just pull up from the tail and it comes out like that. All right, then you want to zoom out again. Then you want to remove the wireless antennas, unroute it from where it is. So pull the antennas back and then just pull the cable up out of this, okay? Just like this. And then it goes underneath these rubber pieces as well, so you need to pull that out as well. Okay, and there you go. All right, so now that you got that, we're gonna remove the speakers. So normally I leave the speakers in, but I'll see if I can just take them out, depending how strong the adhesive is right now. Sometimes it gets held in really strong. So for this connector, you want to be very careful. Actually, let me zoom in again. So these types of connectors, they're kind of a little tricky to remove. What I do is I get my fingernail underneath, and then as close to the wires to the connector as I can. You don't want to pry underneath this connector because you can damage it. I just use it at the wires as close to the connector as I can, and then I just pry it up like that, okay? If you get the tool too far under or your fingernails too far under, you can rip this off the board. I've seen people rip those off the board, so be careful. Okay, and let's see, any others? Okay, so let's go zoom out again. Then you got the connector here. So this has a little foam adhesive thing. It's gonna tear that foam, so don't worry about it. That's usually how it goes. But to pull that out, I just go underneath. I guess we'll zoom in again. I just go underneath with both my fingernails and then kind of wiggle it and pull it up just like that. Sorry, the camera's shaking. And same thing with the other side. Okay, oops. Same thing with the other side. Just go underneath with like on both sides, okay? Because the connector runs vertically along this way. Okay, so just like that, wiggle and pull it up, and there you go. So if you need to replace this connector, the model number is 821-1722-A. Okay, so we'll set that aside. All right, so now let's actually remove one of the speakers. I'll show you on one, but you don't really need to take out the speakers. But if you do want to replace them, you can. So I go underneath the speaker like this from the top because there's no adhesive. The adhesive is all down along this side. Okay, and then I kind of just move my fingernail closer along down the speaker. You can use pry tools for this as well, but you do want to lift this up slowly and try and pull it from as close down where it's stuck as possible. You don't want to just yank it up from here, or you can possibly snap it in half. I've never seen one snap in half, but just in case you want to pull it, I'm prying it up with my fingernail from as close to the adhesive as possible. Okay, so just go further down like this. Okay, and pull up the speaker just like that. Okay, so the adhesive will slowly peel up. Sometimes it gets stuck halfway down like this, and then the adhesive comes up, so just make sure to push it back down. If the adhesive stretched too much, you can just cut it. You don't need all that adhesive over there. Okay, so that's how you remove the speaker. I'm just going to clean it up since I have it open. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to put the speaker back in because I don't actually have to remove it, but I just kind of wanted to show how it comes out. All right, so just like that. Okay, so now if you want to replace the wireless card, I guess I'll show this as well. You don't really need to take all these out if you're just taking out the motherboard. Oops, sorry, it's hard to tell where my camera is. Okay, here we go. So, but basically, there's one screw. You use a T5 screwdriver. Take the one screw out. Once you get the screw out, you can lift up the wireless card, and then you can kind of wiggle it slightly and pull it back. Okay, so that's how you remove the wireless card, and I'm gonna leave it in there. Same thing goes for the SSD. So Apple uses their own type of SSDs for these computers. So if you wanted to remove the SSD, it's the same idea as the wireless card. There's just one screw holding it here. This is the SSD. Okay, So now I'm going to show how to, well, I guess we'll remove all the screws for the motherboard, and then I'll show the other connectors after that. Okay, so let's zoom back out. Okay, so on the motherboard, I know it's kind of zoomed out quite a bit, but there's one screw here. Okay. Keep all the screws in order because they are different sizes and lengths. You don't want to get them all mixed up, and then if you put the wrong screw back in, you can get it, you can damage the computer. Okay, so we'll remove this screw up here, then this screw here. On some models, they actually hide a screw underneath the SSD, so it might be a good idea to remove the SSD anyways. So there's another screw down here. I guess I'll show that I'll actually take out the SSD. This one doesn't have the screw under the SSD, but I'll take it out just to show it. Okay, take out the one screw there. And then you can lift it slightly and wiggle while pulling it back. All right, so the SSD comes out just like that. Set that aside. All right, so now we're gonna take out the rest of the screws. There's another one here. All right, then there's the fan screws. There's one here. All right, there's another motherboard screw down here. All right, so let's remove some of these connectors so they're not in the way. So this connector to the I/O board or the charge port board, you basically just grab the wires here like this, and then you just wiggle it up and down just like this while you're kind of pulling it. All right, and it will come out just like that. All right, after you do that, you can take out the fan screw at the bottom here. Okay, then there's another screw up here. Remove that one as well. And then you got the speaker screw, or not the speaker screw, but the I/O board screw here. Okay. And then the last screw you don't want to forget is underneath the wireless antennas in this very corner. So this one goes underneath the heatsink, okay? Or it's holding down the heatsink. So I'll see if I can show you a clearer view when I actually remove the board. Okay. All right, so now that we got all those screws out, to remove the fan, let's zoom in again. So to remove the fan, it's like the other cables. You just flip this little latch up, okay? Once you get that latch up, peel off this rubber thing so that it's not attached to the fan. Be very gentle with this. You want to lift the fan slowly out and then pinch underneath to hold onto the bottom of this cable, okay? And then you can pull it out. So this is what I mean. You want to pinch on this cable here, sorry. So that way when you pull it, it doesn't yank the cable out. You want it to have some better grip. All right, so that's how you get the fan out. Once you got the fan out, then we want to remove the webcam, or what is it called? EyeSight camera cable. So just lift this cable up. Okay, sorry, my hand's in the way, but lift that up. And then to remove the cable, you want to grip it as close as you can to the connector, and then you just wiggle it. Sorry, my hand's in the way, I know, but just wiggle it and pull it slowly and gently, okay? And it should disconnect. If it doesn't come out, don't pull it really hard. You might want to use a tool to push these little wings back. But usually I find the best way is just wiggle it like this slowly, and it'll eventually work its way out. Okay, so now we're going to get the cables out. So this EyeSight camera cable goes underneath this board, so you do have to lift it slightly. I use this cable to kind of pull it up slightly and guide the EyeSight camera out. It goes into a notch here, so you want to get that out of the notch. All right, then you got the speaker connector here, just like the other one. So you want to get your fingernail underneath the cable as close as you can to the connector, but not prying underneath the connector, okay? And then you just pull it up just like that. All right, then there's the microphone cable here. So to remove that, just lift out this plastic stuff out of the way, okay? And then while you're holding that out of the way, flip up the little latch just like the other ones. And then after that, you want to try and grip the back of the connector and then pull it out just like this, okay? You don't want to just pull this plastic tab because it will just peel off. Okay, then you can lift this connector, this I/O board out. Okay, be very careful. It will get caught on the speaker cable, so you do have to hold the speaker cable back or remove the speaker, and then you can take the board out just like this. Okay, so I believe the different MacBook Airs have different models of this, so make sure you get the right one. Okay, so check which year model your MacBook is. There's a website, I think, called Every Mac. You can search your serial number and it will tell you which one yours is. Okay, so we'll set that aside. All right. So now that we got all the screws out and everything out of the motherboard, we are going to pull the motherboard out. Okay, so let's see here. So to do that, you want to make sure this speaker cable is out of the way, and then lift this side of the motherboard up first. Okay, just lift it up at an angle like that. So then get these cables out of the way. All right, once you have that lift up, then you can go from this side and kind of guide it away from this antenna wire that's kind of holding it up. All right, after you do that, you kind of just continue maneuvering it, and then you need to pull it down this way, okay, because it's slotted underneath in this corner here with a rubber piece. So just pull it down that way, okay. Make sure this rubber piece stays in place, and then there you go. So we have the motherboard out now. If you want, you can redo the thermal paste. I have videos for thermal paste on other laptops. It's very similar idea, but you don't need to take the motherboard out for that. There's just the 4 screws here. All right, so underneath, there's not really anything you can do, but here you can see the soldered in RAM, okay? And yeah, there's not much else, but there you go, just in case you wanted to see what the other side of the motherboard looks like. Okay, then you have this rubber piece. Make sure this rubber piece stays in place. This one goes, sorry, it's blurry, but this one wraps over the motherboard. There's actually a little hole in the motherboard to hold this rubber piece in place. Okay, and then the other one goes in between. Sorry, it's hard to see, but the other one goes in between, so it slots in here. Okay, it doesn't go underneath the heatsink, it goes in between the heat pipe and where the screw goes. So this is the screw that we removed earlier, that one little hole. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to this model. If you wanted, sometimes the trackpad gets damaged or the keyboard. If you're replacing the keyboard, it's very difficult to replace these. I think this model has rivets. Let me check real quick, actually. Okay. This one, I think, has screws in the frame and then rivets around the rest. So let's get this out. So you also have to like peel up this black plastic thing. So it's kind of a pain to replace these keyboards. Usually if you're going to do it, you would just replace the whole palm rest assembly, unless you kind of want to put a lot more work into it. So let me peel this up. Underneath the black plastic, there's this backlight thing, so that's another layer. You have to lift up that layer as well. All right, let me get this out of the way. I don't want to damage it. Okay, and then you can peel this up, but if you look underneath, oh yeah, so if you look underneath, there's small black screws here, and then there's a rivet in here. So the way this keyboard is held in place, they put a frame of screws around the edge, and then all inside there's a whole bunch of rivets in going all the way. I think there's like about 70 or so. So if you are going to replace the keyboard, it's doable, but you have to like rip the whole keyboard out after you take the screws out, and all those rivets will fly around. Usually I'll put it in a plastic bag and then pull the keyboard out so I can collect the rivets, and any that are okay, I'll put them back. But anyways, if you want to replace this cable, a lot of people damage this cable, you can flip this up and then you can pull this cable out. I'm going to leave it in there. Same thing with the keyboard. It's a little tricky because it wraps, it curls, and it plugs in like that on top. So it curls over and it plugs in that way. So to do that, you kind of have to lift the cable up and then push on the bottom here to keep it bowed, curved up like that. And then you can flip the latch here, and then you can pull the keyboard cable out. But I'm going to leave that because their keyboard is okay. So now to put it back, you basically just do everything in reverse. So grab the motherboard, Logicboard, okay? And then make sure you hold this speaker wire out of the way, or if you took the speaker out, then that's fine as well. You want to put this all right, this part behind this wire, just like before. And then you want to slot this, sorry if it's out of view, slot this part back into that hole like it was, okay? Again, you want to make sure the speaker wire stays on top, okay? And then you want to try and slot that in, all right? Speaker wire is getting sucked back under. So make sure you keep the speaker wire on top. Okay. And again, this side with the screw on it has to be behind there. Okay. This is a little tricky to get back in properly. Just keep that in mind. All right. Be patient. You don't want to use force. It should go in pretty nicely. And then make sure you get these wires out on top as well. So pull this wire back out. And then make sure that the backlight cable is on top as well. Okay, and then you can just slot it back down. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to reattach the keyboard or the speaker connector. Okay, and you just line it up back the way it was and then push it down. Okay, and it will click back in place just like that. So the other tricky part, or let's reattach this. So of course, to reattach this, just line it up. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. Okay, of course you just line it up and then pull it back in. Okay, just like that. Make sure it's in all the way and then put that latch back down. And like I was saying, the tricky part is just making sure everything is aligned properly. So usually what you'll do is check this one first, make sure the hole is lined up, and then you can put that screw back in. Okay, just like that. Make sure it's lined up and put that screw loosely because you want to make sure that all these ports are lined up properly. So usually what I do is I just look in the screw holes and make sure that they are lined up and centered. And then once you make sure that all the screw holes are centered and that these ports are flush against the side, you want to kind of pull the board over. I'm actually like pulling the board with this hand over to the side to make sure it stays in place. Then you can start tightening down the screws. Okay, so I'll tighten that one down, and then I'll grab the screw for the far end. Okay, double check again that all your cables are on top of the board, nothing trapped underneath. And then after that, I'll put in the one screw all the way over here. And after that, you don't really have to hold the thing anymore. But yeah, okay. But make sure again that this is all aligned. Push it up this way and to the side. Okay, and then just tighten it down. There we go. All right, so once you got that screw in, you can go ahead and do all the rest, just like this. Okay. All right, so get all of those screws, put them all back in. Remember that there are 3 screws for the fan, so you want to save those until you put the rest of everything else back in. I'm going to put the SSD back in now. Okay, make sure you put it the right way. One side of the notch is shorter, so you don't want to put it upside down and then damage the socket. Pull all this dust out here. Okay. Just like that. All right. There's one here that's for the board as well, so I'm going to put this screw back in. Okay, so now we're going to reconnect these. Let's zoom in so you can see better. There we go. All right. But basically, you just slot it in. Make sure the latch is up. Slot that in. Okay, and then put the latch back down. Same thing with this one. Make sure the latch is up all the way. Slot it in. Okay, just like that. And then push the latch back down. There's more dust on here. Okay. All right, now you want to put back the I/O board. So this one can be a little tricky as well, but just make sure you have all the cables out of the way. Wireless antennas, eyesight camera, and then these two cables, make sure they're out of the way. Slot it in. You want to get the headphone jack side in first, okay? And then you can lay down the other side. All right, so make sure the headphone jack, you want to make sure that when you plug it in, it lines up properly with the case, okay? And then you can also pull the charging port back. All right, so first thing you want to do is plug back the microphone connector here. This can be a little tricky. I don't know if I can show this on camera because my hand will probably be in the way, but you just pull the connector back, line it up, and then make sure to get it in the slot, okay? And then once you get it in the slot, pull the little tab this way, and the little white line that's on the cable should be hidden underneath there, and then just pull the latch back down, all right? And then you can cover that back in place. Okay, let's zoom back out. All right, so after that, you want to get the eyesight camera back in. So put that in the little notch that it was in before. Okay, make sure again that it's all lined up properly. Okay, now put that cable in the notch. Once you get it in the notch, you want to push the cable while lifting this board up with your thumb, and then get it back underneath that board and plug the connector back into the logic board here. So when you plug that in, the best way to get it back in is take a screwdriver and at the little wings, just push each side slowly a little bit at a time. All right, just like that. And then now it's completely in. Okay, now that you got that back in, just make sure the wire is tucking back the way it should go. Push it back under, and there you go. Hold this in place with your thumb, pulling it towards that side. Again, make sure to check that the headphone jack is lined up and also the charge port is flush against the edge. Okay, so once you do that, take your screw. Okay, let me do that. And then make sure you have it holding, and then put the screw in down here. All right, and make sure that you're holding it tight so that it stays in place. Double check that, make sure there's no gap at the MagSafe underneath the aluminum, and then also your headphone jack here is lined up. Okay, hopefully you're able to see all of that. And then we just put this connector back for this speaker. Okay, line it up, push it back down. All right, put the wire back in place, just like this. So this cable I don't plug in until after I put in the fan. So for the fan, I don't know if I need to zoom in more, but let's see. Okay, so for the fan, just like this, you have to lift the rubber piece out of the way, put the fan underneath, make sure the latch is up for the connector, and then I just move the fan slightly to the side like this, and then push it back over. All right, make sure that this goes in the slot. Okay, and then when you get it in the slot, you can kind of put the fan in place and then push this connector over. Okay, now that you got it all in place, you can push this latch down. Okay, just like that. And then now we have to put the screws back in. So to put the screws, there's only the 3. Okay, so take the one screw here, put that in lightly. You don't want to tighten it yet, just put back the screw lightly. Okay, just a few turns. Okay, and oops, there we go. So once you got all the screws in, push the fan up against the heatsink with your thumb. You can kind of pinch them together and then just tighten down the screws, just like that. Okay. All right, so now we got all the screws tightened. Make sure this one's tightened as well. Okay. And then you can plug this connector, oops, sorry. Then you can plug this connector back in. Just like this. All right, and then like that. Now you can put this connector back in on top. Just line it up. Okay, push it down. Same thing with this side. Make sure it's lined up. You don't want to force it down if it's not lined up properly. Okay, and then push it down. There we go. All right, so now for the somewhat tricky part is putting the wireless antennas back in. So I flip this over so it's easier for me to reach. And there's a little gap with notches where this kind of goes in. So to do that, you kind of have to move the rubber piece out of the way. And then I use the screwdriver to help push this underneath. Okay, so kind of like this. Let's see if I can actually, I don't know if you'll even be able to see this on camera, but you basically have to get that wire to go underneath. And then I use the T8 screwdriver bit to actually help push it in place, because the smaller one can actually damage the wire. So I just make sure to line it up over the notch. Okay, let me make sure it's going in place. And then I push it down with the T8 screwdriver. Okay, same thing with the other one. And then on this side, same thing. I have to use another screwdriver while I'm holding this down, okay, because I want it to stay in the slot. Then I use the other screwdriver, and then I force it underneath the rubber piece. Okay, so just like that, push them, and then it should go underneath the rubber piece. If it doesn't go, you might have to help pull the rubber piece up. Okay, and it should go underneath there. All right, then you just keep going, guiding this wire along the little slot. I'll show you a close-up afterwards just so you can see the slot I'm referring to, but if you see your MacBook, you should be able to see the slot I'm talking about. Okay, so just like that, guide it all around. Okay, there we go. So now we got the wires in. Now we're going to reconnect the wireless antennas. So just get them in the little notches that they have there. Okay, and the short one, of course, goes in the first thing. Just line it up. It's a little tricky doing this without blocking it with my head, because usually I have my head over the top. And then what I do is I rub the connector to make sure it's in place. If it's not moving around, then I know that I should be able to just push it down. Okay, same thing with this one. Okay, make sure it's lined up, and then push it down, just like that. Okay, so now we got all those connectors in. Let me show you the notches I'm referring to. Hopefully I can get a clear view. So here we go. So here you can see there's a little extended metal piece there, so it notches in. And then all along there's another one. There's another notch, and there's another notch. And then it curves around here. There's another notch. It goes underneath this rubber piece here. Sorry. So it goes underneath that rubber piece that we kind of had to pull back, okay? And the wire just keeps going along, another notch, and underneath the rubber. Okay, so there you go. That's the wireless antennas. So we got everything back in. This had liquid damage, it wasn't turning on. I cleaned up the board and it looks okay now. But anyways, the battery, again, you don't want to slide it around. So what you do is get the notch, the connector. Okay, I'm holding the battery up right now, and then plug the connector in, and then you can drop the battery down. Okay, if you're gonna put the cover on, make sure, if you're gonna test it and you don't want to put all the screws in, at least put the middle one, because otherwise this little latch, it'll get the battery stuck to the cover, and then yeah. But anyways, I'm gonna put all the screws back in because I already tested it earlier and it's working. Okay, just like that. Okay, last two screws for the batteries. All right. And after I reassemble it, I always like to do a PRAM and SMC reset. So let me show you how to do that. So just put the cover back in place, snap it down. You can put back the other screws for the bottom cover as well. Okay. So again, this is a pentalobe screwdriver that you have to use. Then for the middle back ones, you have longer screws. Okay, so these screws are much longer. Make sure that when you put the screws in that it's not really difficult to turn. Sometimes people put the screws in crooked and damage the hole for the screw, and then the screw doesn't go in all the way. So make sure that when you do it, it's going in properly before you tighten it down. One way I do that is, I don't know if you noticed, but I usually will turn it backwards first. So that way I can feel that the screw falls into the correct threads. Okay, just like that. Okay. Maybe I need to make a separate video on how to do a PRAM and SMC reset as well. But okay, so that's how you do that. Got all the screws back in. So I'm going to show you the PRAM SMC reset that I always recommend doing after you change any hardware on the Macs. So first you plug in your Mac. You should notice that the light is orange. I don't know if you can, oh, you can't even tell. Okay, but anyways, the light, oops, it already started itself up. But the light on here should be orange. If your battery is already like 90 something %, it's going to be green. So keep that in mind. But I'll show you, if your battery is lower, then you'll be able to tell that you're doing the SMC, or the SMC reset properly. So to do the SMC reset, what you want to do is hold on the left side, Control, Option, Shift, and then you press the power button. When you do that, this light will go green. So here you see it turn green, and then it goes back to orange. That's how you know you did the SMC properly. After you do the SMC reset, you can do a PRAM reset, just turn the computer on, and then you do Command Option on this side, and then hold PNR up here. Okay, so do that. When the computer chimes, turn it on, and then press this. So the computer should do the chime. Why is it taking so long? There you go. So keep holding it. You should see the screen flash, and then you can let go, or you can wait till you hear the second chime and you can let go. So you can keep holding it. If you want, you don't have to hold it. After it flashes, you know you did it right. But if you want, you can wait for the second chime, let go, and you know you did the PRAM reset. Okay? So after that, let me show you here. Make sure everything is working. So it will take a little while to boot up after you do it, the PRAM reset and SMC reset, but just wait for it. Okay? And there we go. Block the thing, but there you go. So it's working perfectly fine now. I tested the keyboard just in the password box, so hopefully all of the keys are actually typing the right letters. But yeah, so thank you for watching. Hopefully this video helped. If it did, please like and subscribe so that other people can find my videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Let me shut this down. All right, see ya.